Hello and welcome to another episode. I don't know if this is going to be a particularly lengthy one. Well, we talk a bit more, rather than a specific game, I wanted to just talk a little bit about system design and like level ups, and what they mean. What designers need to be thinking about with this. I couldn't think of I don't have like access to like a Miro or anything like that, so I've just done this as a Google sheet. It's kind of my the format for this. As I said before, I really, video editing is just not something I enjoy, and really, it would make a hell of a lot more sense for these sort of things to be podcasts. But here we are, it's YouTube. I found myself here for whatever reason. So the best free visuals that I could set up in a matter of seconds was the ugly ass screen you're looking at there. Will I bother to overlay it with actual references to the games, particularly the ones I've played? Probably not. Yeah, but if you do get any, then you can enjoy them. What's the backlog to this this episode? Well, it's been something that I've been thinking about for some time. I've wanted to do a few video essays, really. Not that this is more just a let's have a chat about it. Talking about some of my philosophies with this, and what I think good games tend to do. What really is what I would describe as the path of least resistance to success. You know, because you can sometimes with systems, we're going to be referring back to the tier list. Many of those games at the high end of the tier list will be, adhering to these recommendations, but not all of them do. So it's it's I think it's just something that's as I say, it's the path of least resistance to success. So yeah. On top of that, I have been playing recently a modern RPG. It will crop up on the channel, although I'm going to do this video way before it gets published. And the game has been Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I don't want to give too much away on my feelings about that game. That's not what the purpose of this is. I will say that I think it's got a fantastic what if, and there's a lot of really cool concepts that are involved in terms of like the sort of, when I did the Final Fantasy 7 storytelling thing, I talked a lot about like a loss of art direction, and I think that there is some very good art direction in Clair Obscur, particularly in the early stages of it. But having just heaped praise on it there, I am now going to dunk on it. Sorry, I have to have a drink. Excuse me. I think it's got problems with its levelling up system. There's many elements of it I could talk about, but the system with I think it's called Pictos, and just generally, like when you level up, you get some stat bonuses, which kind of link to like your weapon, and each weapon will have preferred stats for use. So you might do like one weapon might rely on health and defense, and another one relies on I don't know, like speed and crit, I think is one of the other attributes. And so you're getting these these level ups. There, you also get every time you level up, you get a point on the skill tree to spend on new potential skills. And I think that whatever else you think of the rest of Clair Obscur, I think its RPG system, its leveling system, runs into a lot of trouble. I mean, as we speak, I'm in Act 2. When I level up, I get a point which goes on my attributes, which I just put in the attributes of the weapon I'm using. And I get skill attributes for the skill tree, but I never even bother to go into that. Because the way it works as I see it with Clair Obscur, and I'm sure I won't be alone with this. Firstly, like it's got a system where the skills that you get as you get further into the game, there's trade-offs for them. So you're not necessarily better with skills you get later. The other thing you've got going on is that characters will have a certain amount of synergy with one another. So when you find yourself in a build that works, you're more likely to stay in that build. I could redesign my entire skill tree for my characters, but I would need to really build it from the bottom up. Right now, we've got a system where, like fire damage is something that we not only get very cheaply from Lune, but also Mael needs that as part of her rotation to get into the I forget the name for the pink attack mode, but it's the best one. But yeah, she needs that fire to get in there. So in the end, there's no real huge incentive to level up. Like not quite in the way as it was in Dragon Age, where we had that absolute disastrous system where it was disadvantageous to level up, which should always just be a never thing. But it's kind of the joy of it's sort of been lost, and it's just plateaued. It's how I would say. And I think as well there's problems with the gear that you get in that game. It's just it neither feels particularly impactful, nor has sort of like a regular soft reward. If you look at like Fire Emblem Three Houses in comparison, like that is just dishing out feel good factors with its leveling. But I think the thing with this, I mean, like when we talk about role-playing games generally, the level up, that incremental numeric progression, the sound of ding as you fill your experience bar to get you to that next point. It's almost as much of a definition of the genre as any other classification. You could say, what is an RPG? And answer a game where you level up, and that wouldn't be a terrible definition. That leveling is a really, really core part of the experience. And when we were doing the tier list, I was talking about some of the games on there. I think about Might and Magic 7 particularly, where the leveling up system in that game is so strong that it carries the game past all its other failings. The writing is horrendous. It's just really dreadful. But, a leveling up system matters. And I think with Clair Obscur and many other games like it, you can't... They sort of knew going in that they would have to have a system. There had to be a level. It's an RPG, right? So you're going to have a system, but the system wasn't terribly well realised. So yeah, I thought we'd go through this and just have a little bit of a brief chat just about the various forms and systems and so on. I'm also mindful. I feel like I've been having quite a few goes at him lately, and I can't stress this enough that I think he is absolutely one of the good guys. But I remember that talk, or I'm mindful of that talk by Josh Sawyer on Gear, and I disagreed with him on that, on many points. Again, I've said it before. Who are you going to listen to? Some dude who hasn't got a published game under his belt, or or the heads of Obsidian. So, although as Tim Kaine pointed out Tim's very, very good at replying to comments on the YouTube video. He's exceptionally good at it, and he was replying to one of mine where he himself said that you should be having discussions where everybody involved is equal, and you go off the merit of the idea itself. But then again, he's also said stuff where you shouldn't listen to people who've never published. So Tim's human like the rest of us. Yeah. Why systems? Oh, that's cutting this off slightly. Never mind. Right. Well, it's the alignment there is a bit skew-iff, but maybe can I bring this over here slightly? Come on. There we go. Right. It's going to be off-centre one way or another, isn't it? It's just the horrid design of trying to do it on Google Sheets. What in the hell is this? This is part of a series, a Liz Keogh thing in software development. How we basically assess what's the phrasing on it? Estimating complexity. And I wanted to just bring this in. This is straight out of the software engineers in the room will be groaning already, which is probably most of you thinking about it. This is a product development school of thought, something that they call agile. And the first thing to say is, like, this is not me banging on an agile drum for making games. There's been many brilliant games that have been made without nobody's carrying the an agile manifesto on the development team. Just because you approach a game in an agile way doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be good. But it is, to me, it's a useful way of working. This is not a course on agile. I'm not going to do this. I just wanted to have this section to because I think it was something that was kind of missing from that talk by Josh, and I think it's really, like, before we get involved in the nitty-gritty, before we dive in, we sort of need to say, well, why are we doing this? Like, we know it's a part of the RPG, I don't know, paradigm, I guess, or genre, maybe is easier. But why are we actually doing it? So that little chart on the left of the screen, it's basically like, how you break things down in a project. So what we talk about here, vision is the central mass that holds the project together. Goals are quantifiable measurements of value. Capabilities are provided in order to reach the goals. Features implement capabilities, and tasks are the units of work that produce features. The bottom half of that doesn't really matter too much in the context of this conversation. But to talk about, like, the top three things, really, like, your vision might be, I don't know, I want to make a kick-ass RPG. I want to make a really good RPG. And the goals might be, I want it to have a really good story, I want it to have a sense of exploration, and I want it to have a good leveling up system. And then, your capabilities would then be like, how in depth, is the story non-linear to satisfy the exploration? Is the story well thought through and realised with a good what if at the centre, and then told in a meaningful way? Again, see the storytelling section on Final Fantasy VII. And then, is the levelling up system suitably rewarding? And the reason, like, why I want to sort of drill down on that is like why, like one of the problems it seemed to me with the Joshua armor situation, or the gear situation, specifically armor, as you say, like, what does armor need to be? Well, it's like, it needs to, at its core, it needed to reduce damage, it needs to have a trade-off, it needs, and I've said it before on this channel, like, the first and primary goal of armor, and indeed anything else, and this is especially true of this, is to provide fun for the player. All these components should be a reward, because, like, at its core, like, if you're making a role-playing game, if you're making a first-person shooter, if you're making a Five Nights at Freddy's jump scare thing, whatever you're making, the core part of it should always be, I want, are we making something fun for our target audience? It always comes back to that fun, and I deliberately use the Five Nights at Freddy's example in this because, I have no interest in that sort of thing. Like, being alarmed and jump scared is just not. It's just not. That gives me no entertainment whatsoever. It's just not my jam. But there's a lot of people out there who, for whom that is their jam. And Five Nights at Freddy's, like, whatever else you think of it, in game design school. And as I say, I'm not here to analyse that because it's just not my thing. It seems to have done quite well with the people who do like that, who like being alarmed. And as such, it's fun. And you could say, perhaps more what's the word? Other types of horror for people who enjoy being, unnerved or scared or what have you, is still generating fun. But by and large, if you're not working, like, don't assume that your game is fun. Make your game fun. And, like, it's tempting to say here, well, like, how do you quantify fun? How do you measure fun? And I don't think, because something like that, like, it eludes measurement by its nature. That doesn't mean that you can't identify. Like, not everything that exists is measurable. I don't mean that in a sort of airy-fairy thing. I mean that, like, emotional responses. Fun is just an emotional response. They're there, but they do, as I say, elude measurement. But that's what you would do. I mean, generally speaking, if most of the junior, that's not junior, but like most of the single or very small studio devs that, like, I really would like to reach with this channel. For most of them, it basically comes down to: do you think it's fun? Do you want to play the game? For myself, and what I've done, still yet to publish anything, but even the act of just playing the game is fun. It's and part of that fun basically is, like, how you reward the player. I've mentioned before with this that, like, I think one of the other problems that, like, a lot of game designers run into, I think, is this sort of kind of adversarial relationship with the player. Like, it sounds really, really basic, but I think there's a world of design difference between why do we need a level up system? Well, we need a level up system to better equip the player to beat the challenges ahead, compared to why do we need a dungeon? The answer being to showcase the player's power. You know, like making. I've always, you know, I mean, again, the FromSoft games you can't put in their own little box and space. But by and large, I think it's a much healthier thing for an RPG to be easy rather than hard. And I think, like, making things unnecessarily difficult, I don't think it helps anyone. And we are, at the moment, just for the record, the current videos that are coming out are, you know, Fire Emblem on maddening difficulty. Clair Obscura I was doing on the default setting, I think. Can't remember what if there is difficulty settings in that. Yeah, I don't think there's everything else we just sort of played on normal. So yeah, let's have a look at this other thing. Give it at least a little bit of a change of view on it. I have put this into 4 columns. It really should be 5. Didn't think about that because I need to put the name of the damn things somewhere. Please bear with me. Alright. We might have to shimmy you. Sorry. Again, I'm not visually appealing. I have to look at your screen, not mine. So we can see this. We can probably move Dangerous person thingy down, just start with the Fs. Yeah. So I've grouped that into 4 columns there. Why have I done it like that? Well, because this to me is kind of the root of okay, I'm not sure that. The root of the design here. Oh god, yeah, you're off centre there as well, aren't you? Right. We might have to. I could just resize my screen. It just says everything about me and my laziness when it comes to the video editing side. This path of least resistance, generally to me, you'll have a leveling up system, and then you'll have what I call an allied adjacent leveling up system, and maybe even a secondary allied adjacent leveling up system. So if we take, just going straight off the top of the list, just as an example, we'll go with Final Fantasy VII, and I'm going to change the colour of that to pink, please. No, that wasn't what I wanted to do. This one. If I censor a line, how bad is it for you? Pretty fucking bad. Right. So, Final Fantasy VII has character levels. So, very simply, you start off. You don't start at level 1. I think you start at level 6. Is it for Cloud? And you go up to level 99, and each time you go up a level, your power increments slightly. But you also have an allied adjacent leveling up system that is running through much the same system. You still you're getting your gear. You're going. You're gaining your experience. And you're gaining your AP for materia, and it's just materia is the classic sort of quintessential leveling up system, or allied adjacent system, because it doesn't run off XP. It's got its own meters, its own metrics. But in reality, it might as well just go off experience. You know, there's things you can do with the AP. Obviously, you have different growth rates and things like that. But in the context of the reward system, this is yet another reward for the player. Now, there's an argument to sort of say with this that, well, really, you know, you can make the argument that materia is almost more important than the leveling up system. Because it has, like, that's where the player feels the benefit. You know, you've got fire, and you've been using fire magic, like, right the way, you know, up and until you get to, I don't know, like Cosmos Canyon or something, and then suddenly you unlock Fire 2. And Fire 2 is like 2.5 times as damaging as Fire 1. And like, suddenly, you know, you've had a meaningful upgrade with that. The next thing, I mean, like in Final Fantasy VII terms, does it have a secondary allied adjacent? Well, yes, it does. This one doesn't often sort of strike us as a leveling up system, really, but it absolutely is. And of course, it's the limit break system. You know, the more limit breaks you use and the more enemies you kill, the more you progress up the limit break ranks, and they, with one or two exceptions, should be better the further you go up the chain. So it's another like leveling up system. The last one, gear. Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, you know, let me just put yes. Should gear be included in the concept of a leveling up system? It is not a level up in the same incremental, you know, numbers just ticking upwards kind of way. It is not powered by experience, and generally speaking, in design circles, it tends to be in its own category. And I think that the reason it ends up in its own category is because it goes back to what I was talking about here. Like, well, in fact, let's just capitalise that. Like, people view it more in an almost like a sort of visual, artistic sense, gear. It's like there are, in your D&D handbook, there's a section on leveling up, and then a different chapter is the bit on equipment, because, you know, like they're just different, aren't they? They're just two separate things. But when you're making a game, like, this is all like, all this is forming part of like the player reward. It's all player reward, and it's all serving the same purpose. If you want to, when you're balancing your game, a gear is as much a part of the leveling up. So as much if you think about it in that line of thinking, in this same sphere of like what this means for the challenge of the game, what this means for the reward granted to the player. I mean, I've said before with the Josh Sawyer thing of like, you know, armor should have a trade-off. No, it shouldn't. Armor can have a trade-off. If you want a trade-off, then you know you can have that. Normally, I would say have the trade-off be more tied to character creation than to receive, you know, something you pick up along the way. But gear forms part of the player reward, and you know, whether that reward is for winning beating a difficult fight, or just exploring, or just moving through the game. You know, there's lots of different ways to handle gear, but I think the important thing to note in this context is that, yeah, it's like it is part of the overall structure of reward, you know, an incremental growth of the character. And like, I think that caveating rewards, which is part of the problem with Clair Obscur, is it's just like, you know, you've got these extra skills, but you know, it comes at a trade-off. It's like, right, so I don't want that trade-off, so I guess I just won't bother. And you know, maybe I'm playing that game like a weirdo. Maybe nobody else plays it. Maybe everybody else is like, yes, new powers, let's redesign my entire party every time I level up. I don't think many people are going to be doing that. That doesn't strike me as a very human thing to do. I think people fall into quite sort of conservative patterns with, you know, their powers, unless it's an easy sort of no-brain shiny. But when your new shiny like might be shiny or might actually be like shiny spiky, you're not going to go for it. Let's go on the list. We'll just carry on because why not? The next one up there is Baldur's Gate 2. So, what does Baldur's Gate 2 have? Well, yeah, we've got character levels. What that was about. We definitely got gear. The other thing, just to say on this, and I think it's generally it's a classic system with a long history of working in RPGs. So either do this or really think cleverly about how you're going to subvert it if you want to do something different. But recognise that it's not enough to subvert stuff. You need to, you know, what the subversion is has to have value in and of itself. But the absolute classic thing here is have a system where you can always level up and gain more experience, but there is more experience the further into the game you go, so that you never, you know, you can always grind up a bit to match your, you know, the current challenges ahead of you. And then gear is almost invariably like linked to your progression in the main quest. It doesn't mean that the gear is necessarily like attached to the main quest. But if we think about, say, Baldur's Gate 1, you know, that there's some really good stuff that you get before Baldur's Gate, but by the time you get to Baldur's Gate, you're starting to get access to like even better things. Fallout 1, obviously we did on the channel, like, by the time you get power armor, or really even combat armor, or really even just leather armor, that's because you've moved along further with the main quest. You've gone to the sort of places. Technically, you might not have done anything about the water chip, and got those things, but you've been to the places that that you need to go through in order to progress with the main quest. And I just think that like I say, I mean, you can subvert that, but I just think it's a really solid base for your system. Having a leveling up system where the further you go through the game, the more experience there is, but you can always level up to give yourself an edge at the current level. And having gear that just gets better the deeper you go into the game. You could do, as a subversion of this, you could do a game where rather than leveling up, you level down. You start at level 50, and the more fights you get in, the more injured you get, and the more hampered you are, and the harder it is, incentivizing you, I suppose, to rush through the game before that happens. And your gear, suddenly, you start with all the best weapons, and they're slowly decreasing as you go. What an interesting subversion that would be. Would it be a good game? No. Almost certainly not, because it's not... I hate to treat all us players and gamers as the rats in the cage that we sometimes are, but it's about endorphin hits and like a game that is constantly, there's a reason why the genre is kind of... There are two pillars, I suppose, to role-playing games. And pillar number one is the leveling up system. The idea that you gain levels and incrementally increase in power. And then the other aspect is that you can pretend to be anything. And I think, that tabletop lends itself more to the you can be anything. It just does lend itself more to that. Whereas computer games lend themselves more to this. It's still really good when you're trying to give a player a lot of options for what they can be. Give them freedom of creation and the chance to play it in different ways, and that there's a lot of really good games on that list that are Tim Kane's name almost immediately attached to about 2/3 of them, where you can just be whatever you want to be, but it's always going to be harder to do that in a game than it would be in tabletop. And there's also there's plenty of games on there where you don't have that option. You are stuck in a role. It could still, but the leveling up system will carry it through. The question though in this, was going back to the Baldur's Gate 2 thing, we've got the character levels and it's coming from D&D. Does it have an allied adjacent system? Well, it basically depends on where you want to place magic on this list. Like, there's a really, like, I'm gonna put magic question mark here, or I'm gonna put spells, because if you're a sorcerer, then that's a kind of allied adjacent system. Arguably, if you're a wizard, this comes into gear, and maybe it comes with it's very allied to the leveling up system, because the more levels you have, the more spells you can cast, and so on. Baldur's Gate 2, if you haven't played it, and me and Substandard Michael see this in kind of different ways. Mages are king in Baldur's Gate 2. Like it's a really interesting, challenging party run to run with one mage. I think the most I've run on it is 6, but some of them multis, and it's like, that was not a difficult playthrough. We got Fallout 2. So we've got the character levels. Again, this is a very allied adjacent one. As you go up character levels, you get your skill points. Every 3rd or 4th level, the allied adjacent kicks in, and again, this is very, very much. I'm gonna put absolutely. The reason why this is allied adjacent, you might say, well, this is just tied directly to the leveling up system. But it is tied to it. But as a reward structure, it exists in a different place. It's like materia. Like, you're gaining the experience towards it at the same way you're gaining experience towards your character levels, so the same way you're gaining your skill points or what have you. But where the skill points provide one reward, the perks are providing a very different reward. If you go back to the Fallout 2 playthrough, like, you can kind of see, and anyone who's played the game should know this, it's really all about the perks. Going up a perk level, like, I think when we were doing this on the channel, like, it got to the point where it's like, right, okay, I'm going to level up to level 42, band reference, because then that's like, that's the last perk I'm going to go for, and started thinking about it in terms of perk levels. I think that the perks are just an excellent, simple example of an allied adjacent system. Like, it wouldn't. I really think that, like, Fallout wouldn't have been anywhere near as popular without perks. I don't underestimate perks, because, like, the whole thing with this leveling up system, with any good leveling up system, is it should encourage you, incentivize you to play more. That's like, that's the marker of whether or not it's good or not. Like, do I, if I play a bit longer, then I'll get, a perk, a spell, materia, or my materia leveled up, a new limit break. What, that's something that pulls you along. It's not the only thing in these three games. These three Stone Cold, the best of the best in my view. But it really does form a part of it. I think that like a lot of games, like something that I see a lot with a lot of indie games, and I think it's a trap that a lot of designers fall into, is to do a story-focused game and then assume that the story is what will pull the player along and through. And even though like the story is, it's a key part on how the player will feel about the game, like all those top tier games, and then both the S and the A tier are all creating feelings. They're games that inspire feelings, and that's really important to greatness. But they've also got other systems that pull the player along, because your story won't always be enough. And even like for me, of those games in those top two tiers, I'm going to piss off the Planescape Torment fans here, but I would say that Final Fantasy VII has the best story. Again, I really like the storytelling. Go and watch that video if you haven't already. But the point is that, like, if it weren't for these leveling up systems as well, and all the other bits, there are bits where, like, even Final Fantasy VII drops the ball. I say that as somebody who, I'm perhaps more predisposed to like it. Let's have a look at the next tier down. Now, I'm not going to handle Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger because, to be honest, I can't really remember. What do they use? I feel like there's something I'm forgetting from Chrono Trigger that would meet this. So Planescape has got simple character levels. It's got gear to a much lesser extent. So the allied system in Planescape is the attribute boosts, and these are gained largely through sort of exploring like story thing. I've said before with Planescape, do it the decency of giving its full title. If you know what you're doing, you can get your attributes up into the clouds, which unlocks lots of other things and so on. So you've got that. I guess the one thing on here, Masquerade. This is as near as I can see to the exception. Like, I don't think Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines has an allied adjacent system that I can attach to. As you go through, you complete quests, you get ability points, and you can put them wherever in your character. And there's gear differences, absolutely, which increase, again, standard gear thing of the further you get in, the better the gear you'll have. I don't think it's got an allied adjacent system. Is there something? Is blood capacity a thing? Did I imagine that you, as you go through the game, you can increase that? I don't think. I'm not sure. The different blood's worth different amounts. If so, I mean, like, how does Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines get past all this? Well, the first thing is, as I've said before, Bloodlines is, along with Dirge of Cerberus, the naughtiest inclusion on that tier list, because the thing was, what, like, player skill is is less of a factor than sort of like incremental strategic or tactical play. Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines is an action RPG, and not, when I say action RPG, friggin' Diablo coming and stealing that to mean something else. I don't mean a dungeon crawl. I mean it like it's a first person, but it's got first person shooting elements. It's got platform elements. There's yeah. There's so I think when you're in that sort of game, you can maybe get away with it. The other thing with Bloodlines that, like, it just gets so fucking brilliant. It's just like the feel. Like Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines really is a real belter of a game, that absolute stone cold classic. It's a complete tangent from the topic. It's hard to get the Steam version working. You probably will have a better chance of the GOG version. I'm assuming it's on GOG, just because of the way it works. There are bugs abound, but it's a brilliant one. I had, when I played it back in the day, I had it on CD-ROM, DVD-ROM, whatever. Like the opening speech thing with LaCroix, who's the Ventrue sort of head of the city. I forget what the name is, Patriarch or something, I don't know. And Regent, I think it is. Yeah. It was just completely bugged. Like, it was just going through, like, what I was seeing on screen was just like completely out of sync with the audio. So, like, I basically didn't get the opening cinematic. Did that stop me from enjoying it? No, not the slightest. It was brilliant. Really, really good. How can we do this? I'm gonna, well, it doesn't fit in anyway, but well, whatever. Ire Emblem. Once again, another point for the channel. What have we got? We have got character levels. We have got class levels, we have got skill levels, we have got gear. Do we have anything else in here that is cramming in? Does it even have like a third allied adjacent? I'm not... Yeah. So you get a new class. First off, your character levels. I think Fire Emblem Three Houses is a classic example of the story and concept aren't really all that, but its combat and its leveling up system is pulling it along and doing a lot of good work for it. I think that one of the patterns with Fire Emblem, and it's just generally something that it's an admirable thing, and I don't think it I really don't think you can overdo this. I think they've it's better for it. That game is pouring rewards on you. Absolutely just tipping them out en masse. That you've got... I mean, I suppose the other sort of tertiary allied adjacent is maybe just the support slots. In fact, yeah, I probably would say that you're a bit on the large side, aren't you? You need that a bit. As your characters go up and gain levels, when they get their ding, and you have that moment of right, what stats are going to go up? And obviously, it was hilarious with Sylvain, who couldn't frigging buy a stat increase in his first 12 levels and ended up being fairly useless to us. While Inga's just demolished everything. But you've got that, and then you've got all these classes and trying to get people up through the classes. When you get somebody in a new higher tier, that's a real yes moment. Just getting the skill levels up sometimes gives and unlocks powers, as well as supporting you to get those all important class levels. So, and it's got a really good thing with this of it really revels in showing you the ticks. It loves meteorizing it as well. It's something that I don't feel that Clair Obscur does that very well. Aside from anything else, it doesn't. It doesn't entice you forward. It's just something that sort of happens passively, and when we look at I think another point with this list of the fewer of these you have, the more impactful the core ones have to be. So if you look at Baldur's Gate 2 and Bloodlines, in Baldur's Gate 2, and Baldur's Gate 1 more to the point, level ups are infrequent and big. And they do that. They'll pull you along like that. Whereas in Final Fantasy VII and Fire Emblem Three Houses, level ups are frequent. Three Houses might not seem as obviously frequent as Final Fantasy VII, but when you think about the fact that you've got God knows how many party members. I mean, how many level ups do you get in each fight? It's a pretty rare day where you go through a battle, be it an auxiliary or a story mission, and you don't get at least a couple of level ups. So, it does it a lot more there. When you've got those sort of systems, then I think these allied adjacent things become even more important. But yes, what else is on the list? I guess I'm getting kind of tired now, so I'll probably make this the last one. Maybe I might do more of it later. Might and Magic 7. God, that looks absolutely atrocious. So, Might and Magic 7 has got... I talk about this a lot, and I say it's like... It's the best mediocre RPG you'll ever play. It's absolutely fantastic, despite being awful. It's level up system, so you have character levels. Your character levels will dictate things like your HP, they'll affect your resistances, I think, but more importantly, when you go up, you will get ability points, and then you can put these ability points into skills, and so you can have Axes 10. But the thing with the Axes 10 is Axes 10 probably isn't as good as Axes 4 when you've been skilled by trained by a skill trainer. Which unlocks bonuses, and those are generally, you get moving through the game. I don't know why I'm putting that. It's just yes. If a game is badly written as Might and Magic 7, by having just a level system and then 2 allied adjacents, can pull itself up into a C tier ranking. I must do the Let's Play. I downloaded it the other night. I was like, which, spoiler alert, shouldn't you be playing Clair Obscur, Jar? Yeah. I regularly download it and think, shall I start up the playthrough? And it's still been quite soon since I've last done it, so I don't really want to do it just yet, but by God, it's tempting. Just because of those level ups, Is there anything else on the list that... okay, that's not moving as I expected to. That I particularly want to add in. I guess maybe, like, if we... I don't know. This was just basically intended as a little bit of a chat with this one. I didn't want to there's definitely like things about this that I think we can learn and implement. I think that like the key component for this is like just looking at some of those things here and how we talk about this, like a simple leveling up system is unlikely to be as good value as having one or more allied adjacent systems. Trying to spread the things so that your players have got more things to look forward to. Above and beyond even that, treating your level up system as a reward system, as a player reward, and not being shy or shady about giving your players rewards. You know, like, a rewarding game is a, you know, should be a fun game. So don't unnecessarily sort of, you know, feel like, oh, well, we can't. Again, it's something that, like, we've not mentioned in any of this, by the way. I've just included cash, in-game currency. I've just included in gear with this, but there's an argument to say that you could, you know, put that in its own category for this. I think, like, those thinking about these allied adjacent systems and how they make you feel, and how they spread the value and reward, and also thinking about this with gear there as well. Like, when I look at the games on that list, I think that gear is absolutely integrally part of the leveling up system of Final Fantasy VII. I think it's integrally part of Fallout 2. I think it's integrally the part of Might and Magic 7. I think it's really, perhaps more nominally, the part of Three Houses. I think it's, you know, Three Houses sort of compensating by having all its other leveling up systems that it's throwing at you. To be honest, I can't really remember with Bloodlines. I know there's certain builds that, like, would be running unarmed, like, right the way through. So maybe it plays quite a low part in Bloodlines, which is definitely the odd one out in this list. Planescape had, as I recall, a rather underwhelming gear system that was based around, like, tattoos and things, and it was a bit... that had, like, a Josh Sawyer, like, trade-off thing. And it was just a bit, you know, a bit joyless, really. Like, Planescape does some, you know, marvellous things. It's got some fantastic writing, if not always the best storytelling. But I don't think you look at its sort of leveling up system and gear system, even borrowing as it does from D&D, and think that, you know, it didn't really, that didn't really feel like the best part of it by a long shot. So, what do you think? Are there games on this list that, you know, buck this trend? Is there value to viewing gear as separately? You know, like, what do you think? The purpose of these entirely improvised. Well, I say entirely improvised. Obviously, I bothered to do the world's worst visual presentation. I didn't come in here with a plan. I certainly didn't come in here with, like, notes, or, well, other than, like, thing on agile visions and so on. I like to sort of just chat the way through these thoughts. Yeah. I don't know. I just feel coming back like to Claire Obscure, like, let's try and do this. I'm not. So the characters have levels. We have got the skill tree, and I guess you would say Lumina. Why? And it obviously has gear. Why does Claire Obscure fail for me? Why is this going to even post properly? That looks absolutely horrendous. Let's see if we can drag it over a little bit. It just looks so wrong on my screen, unfortunately. Sure, whatever, I'll do. This is all, by the way, this is a happy medium between looking bad on my screen and looking bad on your screen. So everybody can be miserable about how this looks. Why doesn't this work? I think the skill tree sort of invalidate, like, means new always have a trade-off. Players who fall into behavioral into pattern behavior. I think in the so looking at what's the one I'm looking for? Well, Targeter attributes should make leveling up interesting, but instead makes gear changes undesirable. The most valuable gear, what's the word I'm looking for here? The sort of the gear effects are decided at level 1 rather than 10 or 20. What else? I think Yeah, so I guess like my issues here. So let's call that what it is. So it muted, or I might even say a poison. Like, I think that really expresses my feeling about like the things on the skill tree, and indeed the Pillars of Eternity with its fucking armor system. It's just like, don't poison the reward. Don't say like, like, you've unlocked this new thing, but the downside is, because then it's just not a reward. It's just it's something else that you have to deal with. I don't know whether the one on the line below about the patterns of behaviour, like, I can kind of imagine that there's a player out there are players out there who every time they get a new power, they rebuild the entire party. Like, those players will be out there, and this channel is not. It's certainly trying not to be. Maybe I fail on this all the time. It's not trying to be enjoy specific things that I enjoy and don't enjoy other things that you otherwise enjoy. It is about sort of looking at things and saying, well, like, could these things that we enjoy be done so they're even more enjoyable? Or like, like a lot of the time, I think, and I think even the great Tim Kaine can be guilty of this at times, that like a lot of the time, like, bad or lazy decisions are explained away as choices and things that you just don't like, and it's like, I think, I think that some things are just done because people haven't really thought them through. But in that cycle, these players, these hypothetical players who rebuild their entire party every time somebody gets a skill level up, I think they're in the minority. And I think, like, the two, I've talked a lot before about there being, like, in the world of RPG players, autistic type behaviours are going to show up more. And the idea, it's not to say everyone who plays RPGs has autism, but like, I would say that a lot of there's something in us all, like the sort of person who likes, like, numeric, like, incrementers on value, set rules, manuals full of rules. Like, it's these are sort of, as I say, like, autistic style behaviours, and I just don't think that the autistic attitude to this is going to be, well, I'll just do this. Everything I've been doing before, I'm just going to stop doing that. I'm going to do something completely different. So I suspect that more people will be falling into patterns than not. Which means, again, that skill tree is it's a doubly poisoned. Well, it's not really a poison reward in that case. It's just not a reward. In Clair Obscur, you each piece of gear has two, as I said before, two attributes that are tied to it that affects your your damage with it, which should make leveling up more interesting. But instead what happens is it just means that, like, well, you're probably better off sticking with what you've got. Aside from the fact that that's also probably built into your thing. The idea that, like, I would equip Lune with something other than the fire thing is just laughable. Like even against enemies who are resistant to fire, it's still no. Well, I don't think there's been one thing where some guy actually, what was it? Absorbed fire damage. We still won, but like it was, that happens so infrequently that like the gear change isn't really that. The one thing that Clair Obscur could potentially have that's got this, like, you know, I want to look, like, going back to like the example games, like one of the best sort of leveling things. There's a lot of really good leveling systems on here, but when I think about Baldur's Gate 2, like, when I get to level 9 or what, not 9, like, I don't know, like level 16 or whatever, I'll then have access to such and such a spell, which I've been used, has been used on me loads of times. I'll finally get access to Time Stop. You know, when those like that's an immensely powerful feeling of something I'm looking forward, I'm working towards. And the only thing that, like, Clair Obscur has for this is the gear, which is handled in a separate way anyway. That's a little bit sort of less beyond our control, but it seems to me from what I've seen with the weapons that most of the valuable gear effects are at level 1. I look at, like, you know, like the ones I've got, and like you see some of the powers on level 20, and it's just like, who cares? It's another thing. I mean, it's trying not to make this a conversation about Clair Obscur, but like, it's a weird game from a balance perspective. Like, you walk into Clair Obscur and you sort of in like the opening, I don't know, 2 hours of playing it, 3 hours of playing it basically lays its cards on the table and says, this is a game that you can completely break. You know, if you're good enough with these parries and dodges and so on, like, it doesn't matter, you can take on the final boss at level 1. You know, and you will be, it'll take you an age, but you'll be able to do it. Because that's the game we've made. You know, it's, you know, if you've got the chops, then you know, you can win. Which I think is really cool. You know, I'd have a lot of time for that. Like, I still haven't seen it, and I will. I want to do a watch of somebody who's really good at it, do like a casual run. Like that would be... I'm excited by that. I like that as a system. But then given that it's just like, with the parries and dodges, you can just completely break it. Which is fine. It then has a remarkably, like, sort of cautious and sort of wheedling, like Weasley frigging approach to its gear and its luminous. Like, some of the powers that are on that, like, you would have thought if it was going to just be like, you know, obviously it's a single player RPG, it doesn't need to be balanced, you know, like it. You'd have thought that they'd have gone with more oomph on those, that there'd been sort of big differences, that things would be getting like multiplied rather than sort of, you know, incremented by fractions. I think the other thing, I mean, again, this is kind of a clear obscure problem, but like, that's the other thing with it. Like it, yeah, I don't really feel like I'm, you know, well, quick time event the game. So these are quite negative things. As I say, I don't mean a dogpile on Clair Obscur. There's lots of things it does like well. I do want to dogpile on this aspect of it. I think this is bad. Don't poison your awards. Don't invalidate your existing approach to the game. Don't invalidate your players' existing approach to the game by something that should be a reward. Tying gear to attributes is just a bad idea. Like, to just have something that focuses. Or another potential thing with this that they could have done in a sort of more Three Houses like style route is they could have made, if you're gonna tie gear to attributes, then maybe don't give me control over what attributes level up. Like, if the attributes leveled up randomly, and like, what if you had a system where you've got your attributes, and every time you level up, a random attribute goes up, but it goes up by the level you've just reached. So at level 2, when you hit level 2, you randomly think, then your strength goes up 2 points. But when you're level 5, your agility goes up 5 points. And so suddenly you're like, oh crap, well, my best attribute is no longer strength. Now I can sort of, rebuild that. That would have, made that thing more interesting. I'm still not sure that would be a good way to do things, but it would have, it would have worked more with the gear. I also just think as well, it's got this strange fucking thing with its gear, of just like I never really even know what's going on half the time with it. It's like, oh, have I got a new weapon? It's like, no, you've upgraded an old weapon. Oh, right, is it better than what I've got now? No. Like, right, well, what was the fucking point of that then? Yeah. The valuable gear effects, again, this is a strange decision. Like, it just, yeah. There should be more at higher levels. Doing, just again, like, what is, when it comes to all these leveling up systems, how are you rewarding the player, and what are you doing to incentivize the player to play more? When I get to level X, I will have what? The Luminas, whatever. They just feel poorly designed. A lot of them. And then obviously, Clair Obscure's bread and butter, but that's really more of a, what type of game are you making? I just feel like the final point with this, the final, like, really critical point is, like, a lot of sort of Clair Obscure's problems, a lot of leveling up systems generally, the problems they have, is that they phone stuff in. Don't phone your leveling up system in. Like, if you want to do an RPG and you're like, I don't know, yeah, that'll probably do for the leveling up system, don't make an RPG. Go and do any other genre. Like, if you're phoning in your leveling up system, like, do you even want to do this? Like, this should be the best bit. And don't get involved in this, like, the thing of, like, trade-offs. Like, don't poison your rewards. It's just a really shit idea. Right, that has been 1 hour and 40 minutes of me rambling on and saying in 1 hour and 40 minutes what several of my viewers could have managed in about 15. But hey ho. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.